Jesse Palmer, ESPN college football analyst, also host of Daily Mail TV and the national spokesperson for two nonprofits, the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation and Good Sports. And Jesse Palmer joins us. Good morning, Jesse. How are you?
Dan, good morning, man. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. We were trying to figure out this Ohio State situation where that's a bad win for Ohio State against Maryland. Now you come home. Michigan's waiting. Michigan's supposed to win. Urban Meyer looks miserable on the sidelines. Who's the pressure on in this situation?
It's definitely on Ohio State, Dan. I think there's no doubt about it. And I think my biggest concern for Ohio State really is probably twofold. I think in order to beat Michigan, one, they've got to play a complete game offensively and defensively. And I don't know if we've seen Ohio State do that this year. And secondly, they've just got to play with more emotion and more energy and enthusiasm with a sense of urgency. That's probably, to me, been the biggest shock and the most surprising thing surrounding Ohio State when you consider that this was the number 10 team heading into this past weekend that's still very alive in the college football playoff race. Ever since their loss to Purdue, they just kind of seem like a team that's moping around. They're kind of starting off these games very, very slowly, and then give them credit. Late in games, they're finding ways to win. But if they're going to beat the number 4 team in the country at home this weekend and keep their playoff chances alive, they got to play a complete game, and they've got to show a pulse.
Yeah,
which we haven't seen them do now since probably they went on the road and played Penn State.
What do you think Urban Meyer's future is?
Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what necessarily what his health is. I think that's his dream job. I think that's a job that he'd love to have as long as he can have it. And I agree with you. I mean, each and every week you watch Ohio State, you watch Urban Meyer on the sideline, and he just looks like he's in agony. I mean, mentally, he's obviously very, very animated. He's very invested. I read the reports and I read the articles every week talking about, this could be it. How much longer can he go? I really believe that Urban Meyer wants to go for as long as he can. I think that's a job. I mean, he just seems perfect there. And that's a place that I imagine him, ending his career. As a fan of college football, I know so many people would love to see him, continue to have success and finish up there. But I don't know what his health is, so I don't know how much longer he'll do it.
I was impressed with Notre Dame against Syracuse. And granted, it's Syracuse, but this is a better incarnation of Syracuse football. And even their head coach said, boy, if they continue, I mean, they dominated Syracuse. Aside from the bad uniforms there, how good is Notre Dame compared to Clemson and Alabama?
So I think there's a gap after Clemson. To me, I think Bama and Clemson are far and away the two best and most complete teams and most dominant teams in college football. But what I will say about Notre Dame is that you don't see very many weaknesses when you look at that football team. And to me, the fact that they're unbeaten, the way they're playing on offense now that Ian Book has taken over at quarterback, and after that performance against Syracuse, that was the number 12 ranked team in the country. That was a statement win to me this past weekend, especially when you consider the rest of the top 4 teams all struggled this weekend, including Alabama against the Citadel. So, for Notre Dame, whether you like the unis or you don't, and by the way, I did like them. I wish the helmet may have had like ND and the Yankee scripture calligraphy. That would have just put the finishing touch on it. But to me, that was a very, very impressive win. And I think Notre Dame as a team, I mean, pretty amazing what they've been able to do this year, and especially when you consider their schedule these past couple of weeks, having played Navy in San Diego and then going to Yankee Stadium to play Syracuse. Now they got to go all the way back across the country to play USC in a rivalry game. If they go unbeaten, that is very, very impressive, and they easily are one of the best 4 teams in the country.
He's Jesse Palmer, ESPN college football analyst, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, that we look at Alabama. I think Alabama is boring. I love Tua, but they're so boringly great. They remind me of the San Antonio Spurs. That, you know what, whenever the Spurs would get in the finals, people go, oh, God, the Spurs are back. But they represented everything you would want in a team. They had leadership, great coach, Hall of Famers. They play hard, played at both ends. They did all the things you want. It just feels like Alabama is, like, they're just not exciting. They're just Alabama. Am I being fair to Alabama?
They're unexcitedly dominant.
Yeah.
They're unexcitedly great.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I have a lot of friends that'll, kind of text me heading into the weekend every week, and they'll say, "Which game should I watch, excluding Bama? I'm not going to waste my time and turn the television on to watch them beat a top 5 team by 29 points. I'm just not going to do it. And it's just. I mean, I've said this for weeks now. I think this is the best team this year that Nick Saban's had at Alabama. I think this year's team would beat any of the other 5 national championship teams they've had. And I think the biggest difference, as you mentioned, is Tua, and just how explosive this passing attack is. That's something. I mean, you look at their wide receivers and their tight ends, and they line up across the board, and they've got NFL dudes everywhere that can win one-on-ones. We've seen in years past, Julio Jones and Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley, and they've had one great receiver. This year they've got like 3 true sophomores and a tight end that all look like they're top 3 round picks. And there's just no there's no holes, there's no weaknesses. And you say, okay, well, who gives Alabama, a game? And right now I think it's Clemson. And that's kind of it. Yeah. That's kind of what I see. So, I mean, you're not the only person out there that because you've read the book before. You've seen this before from Nick Saban and Bama.
Is it a foregone conclusion? Okay, what's more of a foregone conclusion? Golden State wins the title or Alabama?
I'm going to say, when's Steph Curry coming back? I'm going to say Bama. I mean, to me, and I thought this week 3, I was like, this is. Week 3, week 4, I said, this is the best team Nick Saban's had. If they stay healthy, then they're going to win a national championship, in my opinion. Now, listen, I mean, Tua's health every week is a question mark, and Jalen Hurts is banged up a little bit at quarterback too, so anything can happen, and there are some spots on defense where Alabama's not particularly deep, so you never know what's going to happen. They've got 2 really physical games coming up against Auburn and against Georgia, but to me, I mean, Clemson looks great. Notre Dame we just talked about. Michigan's defense looks fantastic. But to me, it's Bama and then everybody else.
And it felt like it was Tua and everybody else for the Heisman. But I'm starting to lean a lot more to Kyler Murray with my Heisman vote, Jesse.
Yeah, I am too. And I'm like you. Just the more I've been watching, it's crazy to say this, but I think statistically he's actually playing better than Baker Mayfield did a year ago. But of course he has a completely different dynamic and element with his running ability. And I think Kyler Murray is the only player in college football history to average over 300 yards passing and 60 yards rushing per game. I guess that's what $4.6 million looks like. That athleticism he has and his ability to run around and being a first-round pick by the Oakland A's. But that's a totally different dynamic. And that's kind of the funny thing when you watch Oklahoma is their defense is so bad, yet their offense is so historically good. And it's because of Kyler Murray. You cannot, I mean, what you cannot argue is that Kyler Murray is way more valuable to his team than Tua is to his team. Alabama would still win 10 or 11 games, if they didn't have Tua. But but Oklahoma might not be. Well, they wouldn't be a 500 team, I don't think, if they didn't have Kyler.
Clay Helton survive at USC?
I think so because of the success they've had in recent years, having won the conference, having won a Rose Bowl. Obviously, this year, not what was expected. They knew they'd be behind the 8 ball a bit with a true freshman quarterback in JT Daniels. Still, the expectations should be and are very high, especially in a Pac-12 South division that is so up. It's so wide open, really. So, like Ohio State, like Alabama, like Oklahoma, like these other programs around the country that just expect to win their division, they expect to go to the playoff, like Clemson every year. This has not been the type of season USC was anticipating, but I don't think this year is enough to have Clay Helton lose his job.
Who has more jobs, you or Ryan Seacrest?
Michael Strahan and Seacrest have way more jobs than I do, and you do too, I think.
No. I gave up a couple of them.
Yeah, but you opened a school, though.
Well, fair enough, but I cashed in a couple of those jobs there just to spend more quality time with my family, of course.
Of course, yeah, busy guy. Well, if and when I ever get to that level where I can do that and start, I mean, if you ever need like a substitute teacher, someone to just come in and just give a speech at your school, I mean, I'd love. Reed Bergman can set that up. I would love to do that. We
would love to have you come in, and we'd. I'm trying to think. We'd give you an honorary degree if you wanted that too, Jesse.
Listen, I'll take all the degrees I can get. I'm not applying the ones I got from the University of Florida now, so I need as many as I can get.
Thanks for joining us, Jesse. We appreciate your time.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on.
That's Jesse Palmer.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.